Hey, everybody on YouTube, how we all doing tonight? I am making adjustments on the fly. Why? My glasses are dirty, and I broke one of my mice. What the hell word do you use for the computer? And you had to fix some scratchiness on the show. But you know what? We're ready to go. Sean Patrick Hazlett is here tonight. We're going to have a great show here coming up in a few minutes' time. Give you an update on the Bigfoot site today. We went out there. We grabbed the trail cam. All excited to get out there. We bundled up because it's damn cold up here right now. So we start to transition into winter in a couple of months where the temperatures will get really, really cold. And we get to the gifting site. Nothing has moved. Go to the trail cam. It's been up there for 7.5 days. And we bring it back, and there's no pictures of anything. Yes, we wasted a bunch of time, but it was well worth it. Frustrating, cold, broke my side-by-side, but that's okay. That's okay. We had a good time. That's all that matters. Let's give a shout-out to everybody who is here so far tonight, and I'm having to make some adjustments on the fly here. Jack Clark is here, everyone. Thank you for kicking things off. Hello, gorgeous Kimberly. Good to have you back. Worsley, good to see you, my friend. We have Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Scoreboard Lounge, and Brittany. Your legs look fantastic tonight. I don't know if they do or not, but I'm just saying that. Gorgeous Steph Dickey down in Florida. Good to have you here. Nomad, yes, that's a name change. Brett Lewis throwing a little bit of a curveball, but we can officially start the show. Hey, Bizzle, how you doing? Princess Denali, you're always the official princess of Spaced Out Radio. Lord Ward, good to have you back. Hi, Jenny. Manitoba Becky, mwah, there you go. That's just for you. Don't share that with anybody. Okay, well, maybe FAP. You could share it with FAP. And who else we got? Hi, Cat Chaser. Johnny, good to have you back. And Cat Chaser, yeah. Gorgeous Jules. Admiral Nelson, where have you been hiding? Cat Chaser, thank you so much for the super chat, kicking things off there. Nilbog, good to have you here. Hi, Michael. And the Philip Blair is here. And Tammy Finnegan, the Tammy Finnegan. Gorgeous, talented, and very cold in Manitoba, Tammy Finnegan. All right, Sean, how you doing, man? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
Oh, there you are. There you are. I'm just going to turn you up a little bit because I think my level was a little low. There we are. I'm excited to have you here, man. Excited.
I'm excited to be here too.
I know. I could tell. You know, dude, I was like reading up on you. You're a smart guy. You're pretty. Stanford, Harvard. Is there any Ivy League school outside of Yale that you didn't attend?
Well, the rest of them.
I know, but I'm giving you a hard time. Gee whiz. Gee whiz.
Yeah, look, most people are smart. I just got lucky and worked hard.
Yes, I got lucky and I got a radio show out of it. I worked hard.
You worked hard.
I worked hard. I still work hard. No, very, very impressive resume you have there, my friend. Very impressive.
Well, thank you very much.
Resume. And futurism, and you know, you are going to push our audience's minds tonight a little bit. And thank you very much for the super chat, Manitoba Becky. Much appreciated, my beautiful friend. Much appreciated. I can't wait. Like I'm just pumped up. I've got so many questions for you lined up in the old Canadian noggin here, and I'm looking forward to it, man. Really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to exercising that imagination, if you know what I mean.
Let's do it. We got about a minute. Oh, no, I lied. Yeah, no, about a minute. Here. Let's, I got a bunch of more people coming in, and I always like to welcome everyone into our chat rooms here before the show starts. So, Greco, Opa, man. He has a restaurant just out, or somewhere around Toronto, a Greek restaurant. I still want to go there and try out the food. Apparently, it's fantastic. Dirty Filth from Edmonton. Good to have you here, my friend. Who else we got here? And, all right, we fired that up. 1 second here. Put that there. And, yeah, Who else? Bee's Nest, good to have you here. We're 22 seconds away from launching this thing. Theodora, welcome to Spaced Out Radio in our chat room. I hope you enjoy yourself tonight, and I hope you have a good time. Make yourself comfortable. There's a nice seat on the lounge over there. We have a nice chaise to the left. Never get to use the word chaise on this show. 5 seconds. Here we go, everyone. We're going to have a great time tonight. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you wish to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. What if our past was different? How would it affect the future? Example: what if Jimi Hendrix were still alive? What would music sound like today? What if the Germans had won World War II? What if Ray Romano or Ellen DeGeneres were actually funny? Sean Patrick Hazlett is a technologist, finance professional, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and nonfiction author, and editor working in Silicon Valley. In 2006, he won the Policy Analysis Exercise Award at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government for his work on policy solutions to Iran's nuclear weapons program. Sean also spent time at Booz Allen Hamilton as an intelligence analyst focusing on strategic war games and simulations from the Pentagon. Basically, what he was doing, he was playing a live simulation of Risk. All right? Yes, he went right for the Urals, if you know what I'm talking about. Before graduate school, Sean was in the cavalry, and he was an officer in the United States Army, where he trained American forces for combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan at the National Training Center. This dude is good people. He is strong people, mentally strong, and we're glad to have him here tonight. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranormal Magazine. Sean Hazlett, a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio for the first time, my friend. Thank you for your service in the United States Army, and thank you for being a guest on this show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dave. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, I got to ask you right off the bat here. Was it like playing Risk when you were going through all that nuclear war simulations?
A little bit. And in fact, when I was at Booz Allen Hamilton, they actually would hire, they had hired a game designer from Avalon Hill to kind of, to do a lot of the graphics and iconography and all that good stuff when we were, doing strategic simulations for, wargaming against a certain peer competitor today. So definitely. When it comes to in the National Training Center, though, I would say that at Booz Allen Hamilton, it was more of a strategic simulation, or at the strategic level. As you know, there's, kind of three different levels of how you assess, kind of wargaming, right? There's the strategic level, which is, at the national level, and you're bringing to bear all your economic, military, political, diplomatic, all the levels or levers of national power. Whereas at the operational level, you're dealing with individual military units at very high levels. So you're talking armies, corps, and how those corps and brigades operate in specific scenarios or regions where, specific campaigns. So as an example, when you're talking about operations, think about, Operation Cobra, which was the following, or the follow-on to Operation Overlord, which is the Normandy invasion, right? So an operation is like a very specific, high-level, exercise, or not exercise, but action to exercise, some military strength. And then there's the tactical level, and the tactical level is, very small unit tactics at the individual, squad, platoon, the company, and then maybe a little bit higher, at the battalion level. And that's kind of what we did at the National Training Center. So a typical brigade would go there, take, roughly, 5,000 or so people, and they would go up against the unit that I was a part of, which was the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. And what our role was as what we called the Op 4, which is just a short, way of saying, opposing forces. And we were all instrumented with sensors and, equipment that would emit laser, non-exposing or safe, lasers, kind of in a very sophisticated, large-scale game of laser tag in the desert. And the purpose of those training exercises was for us to expose what the weaknesses of that unit were, so that they could remediate, train, and then not make the same mistake when it really counted in actual combat. During that period, though, when we were training, I would say, on an operational, but mainly at a tactical level, we used the nearest peer competitor at the time, which was the Soviet Union was no longer, but we still used the same doctrine and tactics to train U.S. forces. And we set it up so that we typically always won, because it would be the point in having a unit come in and feel overconfident, and then not learn from any of their mistakes before they went and got involved in real war. So I know that's a long answer to a very basic question, but I would say, when we did work for the Office of Net Assessment, which I believe no longer exists in the Pentagon today, that was at a strategic level. And then what we did at the National Training Center was at an operational, but mainly at a tactical level.
I got to ask you, what would you get into this for? Okay, like when you're growing up, is this what you wanted to do as life? Is you wanted to be an analyst for the United States military and contractors to discuss and figure out the world's issues when it comes to weaponry?
So I always had an interest in the military from a very young age. I always wanted to serve in the military, serve my country. My great grandfather was served in the Navy during World War I. And even in this pandemic environment, I actually have his 100-year-old diary from that period. And he got really sick, kind of in March of 1918, which is roughly about when the first wave of equine flu, or the Spanish flu, hit the world, and it traveled from, I think, Kansas to ultimately Philadelphia, where he got on his ship and transported soldiers overseas to France. So again, none of the doctors knew what it was. So he lost 15 pounds on the journey. But anyway, I'm kind of, I'm going off on a tangent here. But he served in the Navy. Great grandfather. My grandfather served in the Merchant Marine on those Liberty ships, which, if you do any research on, had, I believe, the highest casualty rates of World War II, because of the German wolf packs and submarines and things like that. So it was a very harrowing duty. And not a lot of those folks survived. So, fortunately he survived. Otherwise I probably wouldn't be here. My father did not get a chance to serve, but, I was next in the pipeline. And there's also, a lot of Hazletts who served historically. So if you look at, if you go down to Gettysburg, there's 20 plus names on a monument down there. There was Lieutenant Charles E. Hazlett, who led the artillery battery at Little Round Top, which, if there were battlefield enthusiasts at all on your call, that was the hill that they absolutely had to hold. Otherwise, the Confederates could have won that battle by outflanking that hill. And that was, Colonel Chamberlain's famous charge happened from that hill. And then sadly, Charles E. Hazlett didn't survive the battle. He was shot in the head by a Confederate sniper. So there's definitely a rich history in my family, having served. I even have, my great grandfather's discharge papers from the Civil War. So, there's a lot of history in the family. So that's number one. And number two, I've always been interested in history, and it's always interested me a great deal. And, I think the last point too is, you mentioned, all those fancy schools that I went to. My parents are both teachers. My father was a high school teacher, and my mother was an elementary school teacher. And when I got into Stanford, I scared the hell out of them because they couldn't afford it. So one of the only way I was able to afford it is the Army was gracious enough to give me an ROTC scholarship, and that helped finance about 80% of my tuition. And then the rest, I had a few other scholarships that bridged the rest. I think my tuition for a school like Stanford ended up being something like $200 a year, which was nothing. So anyway, that explains the genesis of why, I'm interested in all these things. And then, if you look at my background, I have a degree in both history, but I also have a degree in electrical engineering. So I've always had an analytical mind. I like to know how things work, and I like to be able to, creatively assess the impact that, different things have on organizations and the impact. And even what I do in my day job, right? I'm a finance executive. I need to be able to do, I have to do a ton of scenario analysis because, that drives key decisions that a company makes that can have long-lasting impacts months and years down the road, right? If you make the wrong decision, you could go bankrupt. Or if you don't make the right decision, you could miss a massive opportunity and, lose value in your stock price because you didn't make the right decision. So that's kind of where this analytical piece came. That's where the interest in the deep interest in the military and military affairs came from.
So would you consider your moonlighting as an author in the sci-fi world, which you've also had success with, as being something that is allowing you to express your mind and the imagination from mind to fingers to computer, because it's not pen to paper anymore? Is that where the love for writing comes from?
The love for writing is a combination of all the things that I talked about. It's also conveniently the therapy that pays for itself, because there's certain things that it helps to work out these things and helps to work out questions, and also helps to imagine different worlds and create new situations, invent new people and work out some of the problems that they have to solve, and then also just to imagine the impact of new technologies on the world and how society deals with them. As an example, you take something as simple as social media, right? And who'd have thought it would have such a dramatic impact on the way the world responds to it. So as an example, and this is kind of from a military angle. In the past, with media, for instance, traditional media, print media, television, things like that, there was a much higher barrier to entry for influencers and policymakers and writers in terms of influencing the American population and the Canadian population, right, or just populations in general. There was a check that you had, most people sat down at dinner time, and this is even before cable, where they watched, 2 or 3 channels and got, information that was relatively harmonized and standardized. With, the advent of social media, a lie can travel around the world before the truth wakes up. And, and then additionally, the business models that are involved in this new social media world is everything's about advertising. So the loudest and most salacious voice is the one that's going to get attention before, the truth sometimes is not interesting. And, that's shaped so many things about our culture. It shaped the level of contentiousness in political discourse, for instance. Because not only is everything about clickbait and eyeballs, people who are outside of these officially sanctioned, quote unquote sanctioned news sources, also have a lot more influence, for better or for worse. In many cases, it's been a force for good. In some cases, it's been a negative force. And then another aspect of this kind of social media revolution is there was a book called The Filter Bubble. That I believe the author's name was Eli Pariser, came out in 2012. And what these algorithms on, search algorithms on Google, the algorithms on Facebook that decide what to present to you, they're all designed to, spike those dopamine levels. So what they want to do is show you things that are pleasing over and over again. And as a result, and then they also allow you to siphon out the things you don't want to see, and also the people you don't want to hear. As a result, you have this siphoning and this creation of information bubbles, where one group's truth is entirely different and alien to another group's truth. As a result, what that does is it makes it very easy for nefarious agents outside the U.S. to directly reach in to someone's home and influence them. So it's a scary time, which is why countries like Russia, who only have a GDP that's roughly the size of Italy, can have an outsized impact with very, very small influence campaigns on either social media or elsewhere. So it's really something that has made dramatic changes, and has been a huge force for good, but also a huge force for trouble and evil. So but again, there's nothing, no new technological change comes without both good and bad, right? When you saw it with the development of the atomic or nuclear energy, right? It had tremendous force for good because you could provide emissionless energy that was much more efficient than any other energy up to that point. At the same time, you could destroy cities with one bomb. So, like any new technology, social media has its pluses and its minuses.
Oh, trust me, we saw that recently with Twitter and YouTube and Facebook all being called out on the carpet. Politically, we were not going to go down that road. But, I mean, when it comes to social media, that's almost a different kind of warfare, isn't it?
It's different, but it's the same. Right. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So information campaigns have always been a part of warfare.
Right.
The Russians even have a word for it. It's maskirovka. Right. If you notice, the whole little green men phenomenon, like that's always been something that's been a part of warfare. I can go all the way back to the Trojan War. Right, where you have, they came in with the gift of a giant horse, where were let into the city of Troy, and the Greeks inside, came out at night and slit everyone's throats, right, or came in and subdued the city. So information warfare has always been, a part of any military. Even Sun Tzu writes about it. Von Clausewitz in his treatise on war, was also talked about deception operations. It's just a modern part of war. It's just a different way of fighting it, and it's a more direct way of getting to your enemy's populations. And that's where I think, the U.S. is very vulnerable, but, so are our enemies. They're also vulnerable to that sort of thing. Now, China has, a lot of its, has kind of the great internet wall. I forget what they refer, what it's referred to as, but, they do have the advantage, or, kind of statist regimes have the advantage that they can, are much more effective at shutting off their internet. We don't really have that ability, although the government can pressure and does have the power to pressure, entities like Facebook and Twitter into shutting down certain types of information. So we're not exactly out of the woods on that.
We have about 2.5 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Sean Patrick Hazlett is our guest tonight on the show. Now, Sean, as we continue on here and kind of start to look towards the future and past events, when you let your mind go to think about some of the questions like I mentioned in the intro, how different would music sound if Jimi Hendrix was still alive? Or what if the Germans won World War II? Or questions of that ilk. I mean, there are so many possibilities that we haven't even got to scientifically yet that it made me think, leading into this one, how many different timelines there are, how many different dimensions there are. Are we living on different timelines at different times, in different eras, in different pieces of history? Is that kind of how your mind flowed through into these projects?
Yeah, I would say it is. I mean, even there's the Everett's multi-world theory, right? And there's a physicist at Caltech, I believe his name's Sean Carroll, and he actually goes through or actually talks about how in quantum mechanics that theory works, and effectively it's down in the it happens at the quantum scale. So each quark, right, subatomic particle, has a spin, and each has like a probability distribution, right? It could go either way. It's like Schrodinger's cat, right? It's either there's a probability it's alive. There's a number of probabilities as to where that quark could spin. But what happens is that wave function, right, which is it has a probability of different events. At the moment something happens, it collapses into one or the other. But when it collapses into one, in another multiverse, it collapses into the other. And if you take that and generate that trillions of times, there's I don't know if it's an infinite number of possibilities, but something approaching infinite number of possibilities, the way that things could happen. Now you scale that up into, I don't know if it roughly translates into each decision you make, but it creates the science for, these branch offs of different realities. Now, when you're thinking about speculative fiction, you can kind of abstract yourself from that, go all the way back, and then just think in terms of big macro.
All right, decisions. Sean, I'm going to get you to hold on there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Sean Patrick Hazlett is our guest tonight. Let's check out a different future right after this on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
Okay. I'm definitely talking a lot. I don't know.
No, you're doing great, man. No, it's awesome, man. It's filled with info.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello.
Okay. Yeah. There's a few times when you're like it'll kind of get really, really quiet and then come back, but it only happens like once every 5 minutes or so, and it happens for about like 5 seconds.
All right. Give me 2 seconds here.
Sure. But I think it happened like 2 or 3 times during the call, so like once every 10 minutes.
Oh, I apologize. That's a Skype thing.
Oh, okay, no worries. So how's it sound so far?
Oh, you're sounding beautiful. You're sounding beautiful. You know,
Okay.
many of us would almost picture you if we didn't know you worked for the militaristic side of life. We would think that the way you're speaking tonight, you have hair that is flowing like Fabio. That's how good you're sounding.
All right. I just hope I'm not telling too many yarns.
No,
here.
you're doing great.
And just like that, 30 minutes go by.
I know.
I was worried. I'm like 2.5 hours. I don't know.
Oh, dude, we give you some good goods here, man. Like, there's 93 people in our chat room watching live right now.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow night, this will play on a bunch of radio stations around North America.
That's great.
Let me.
You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're still there.
Give me 1 second. Yeah. Let's see here. All right. We've been over this past week. We have been we've been inundated with these political trolls in our chat room. And,
Oh God.
And so my booking guy, who's my wrench in the chat room, he's been tightening up the seals here. So it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I hope I'm not scared. I hope I'm not scaring you with that. I'm trying to keep it right down the middle.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Corrins, I saw that. I did see that. No, it's just it's election time, right? So.
Yep.
Yes. So the first time this happened was about a month and a half ago, and I kept getting all of these. Holy shit. Thank you, Kyle Evans. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Kept on getting these people coming in here about free Hong Kong and punish China and all this kind of stuff. And I asked politely because, woohoo, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, Brittany. Hey, Scoreboard. We love you. We have a bar that watches us. Yeah. Bar in Michigan. And anyways, so these trolls came out of nowhere. And so then they went away for about a month and a half. And now all of a sudden, like a couple times this week, they've been back. And now what they are doing is they started out and then we kept blocking them. And now what they're trying to do is they're trying to take people's names from our chat rooms, and they have hundreds of different profiles, right? So they go into a profile, they change the name, and then we got to block those. So now they've started trying to copy our people's names in the chat room. So, I mean, it's so ballsy. It honestly,
Yeah. It's kind of curious too why it's Hong Kong is the focus.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I have asked is look, we don't talk politics. We're not, whatever your political affiliation is, I don't care, because this is our time of the night where we get to forget about the world and we get to talk about the weird. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, although I am talking a lot about the world, I'm just not talking about politics.
Yeah. All right, my friend, hold on. We're gonna get into the second half hour here. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we get into a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with author Sean Patrick Hazlett. Yeah, we're getting into futurism a little bit here. He's got a book out called Weird World War III. You can find it on Amazon. What would happen if the U.S. had gone to war with the Soviet Union? And we're going to turn the corner. I want to get into this because, you know, this opens up so many different pieces of history that it really makes me wonder what would happen if certain events didn't happen or the outcomes were different. Sean, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
No problem, man.
Great to be back.
No problem. We're glad that you were here. Sean, what was the inspiration between USA, Soviet Union, all coming down in the squared circle called Weird World War III?
So the initial genesis of the project was, based on my military experience. So, as I described in the first segment, I spent about, 4 to 5 years fighting like the Soviet Army. So I had, a really rigorous understanding of their doctrine and tactics. So that's part one. Part two, I've been, a writer. I've been seriously trying to be a writer since 2011 when I submitted my first story to, something called the Writers of the Future contest. I'm assuming your listeners have heard about this before, but I'll, say a little bit about it. It's a contest that anybody can enter. It is anonymous. While there are thousands of entries per year, every entry is read, and there are 12 winners each year. During my year, I was invited to Hollywood, and it's based entirely on the strength of your story. And it's something that, when I was first submitting short stories to just out into the world, I had no idea if I had any talent, because it's a different muscle than, analytical writing or, standard business writing. And it's something that requires a lot of practice. But the first time I entered the contest in 2011, you don't necessarily just have to be a winner. They also give out, if you come close, it might be the top, anywhere from 25 to 100 people. I'd have to, review the numbers, but, you can get things like an honorable mention. And the first story that I ever entered into the contest got one, and it gave me the encouragement I needed to, continue to push forward in submitting and getting me to where I am. So as part of that process, in addition to writing military science fiction, I also write, weird fiction, horror, and some fantasy. And one of the weird fiction writers that I really like and admire, or several that I like and admire, are, H.P. Lovecraft is one. He writes kind of a cosmic horror. And then for your listeners who aren't familiar with it, if they've ever seen the recent movie The Color Out of Space, that was with Nicolas Cage. That was based on an H.P. Lovecraft story of the same name. There's also authors like Clark Ashton Smith that who also weird writers that write a lot like that. There's also modern authors that I admire greatly, like Victor LaValle. He wrote he wrote a really good novella that's based on Lovecraft's The Horror at Red Hook. It's just a completely different take. Also, if you have folks who watch HBO, there's a adapted book by someone named Matt Ruff that is called Lovecraft Country. So that's another kind of story that draws heavily from Lovecraftian fiction. And then in terms of modern, other modern writers that I really like are John Langan, who has the last story in this anthology. So what I wanted to achieve with this was to combine, what it felt like to grow up in the 80s when I grew up, during the Cold War, with this, titanic, potential titanic struggle between these two superpowers in a very black and white bipolar world, where there was a danger of complete and utter nuclear annihilation, but there was also lots of proxy wars that happened around the world that were just to the edge of conventional contests between the two powers. And at the same time, I wanted to combine that with give it a weird fictional feel. So I took this alternative history concept of what if the U.S. and the Soviet Union had gone to war? It didn't necessarily have to be nuclear, right? In most cases, it's some form of conventional warfare. And then I added a speculative element to it, right? Some aspect of science fiction or horror or, fantasy that was injected into that. And to give you some examples, imagine that there are demons that, the Soviet Union works with demons to try to infiltrate the U.S. military. Another example is imagine there's a parallel dimension that's adjacent to our world that has a corresponding location in all the same places, but has a copper sky and is appears to be a completely dead world. And let's say the Soviets get to it first and find a way to wink in and out of it, and gain an operational and strategic advantage over U.S. forces in Europe, for instance. There are other stories that riff off of actual Cold War programs like Project Stargate, Project Sunstreak, Project Centerlane, which were were intelligence gathering programs based on a concept called remote viewing and psychoenergetics, which are, if you go to the CIA's website, they're declassified documents. You can read all about it. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, and you'll see that. So I wanted to, take that look and feel from the Cold War and combine it with, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and create an anthology of, 19 different short stories from some of the best, and most promising writers in science fiction and fantasy today. And you have David Drake. He starts out the anthology, and he's one of the first major military science fiction writers, and he's also a member of the same unit I was, albeit 20, 30 years before me. So he was a member of the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. At the time, I think it was just called the 11th Cavalry Regiment, and he served in Vietnam. I obviously have my service in the Mojave Desert, but there's a lot of references to that regiment in the book, and even in one or two of the stories, it's mentioned in passing. And the book's also even dedicated to one of my high school classmates who also served in the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, and who was ultimately died in Iraq, inspecting, was killed by a suicide bomber. He was inspecting trucks, showing his soldiers, how to do it properly. He was, doing what, most great leaders do. They lead by example. So, the book's dedicated to him, and it's also dedicated to Mike Resnick. Mike Resnick is a multiple Nebula winning, Hugo winning, science fiction author who, also has a story in the anthology. And I consider him a mentor and a father figure. And, it's a bit bittersweet that this is coming out now because, he died earlier this year. So the anthology is also, not only does it contain a story from him, but also it's dedicated to him.
The fact that we would even think about that, okay, or think about going to war with the United States or going to war with Russia or going to war with Canada or Great Britain or China one of the, I'm not saying Canada is a superpower, but, there's a lot of large militaries out there. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of ego, a lot of, swinging around the proverbial sword on whose sword is bigger and stronger and sharper. I mean, at times we seem to push it just to the brink, and then we all pull back because level heads come around, and we kind of let's just go for some vodka or whatever it may be, But I also know from sources that I've talked to over the years that a country like the United States, where you are, I'm up here in Canada, and we don't know whether we're going left, right, or center. You guys have game plans for literally every country on the world that poses or could pose some sort of nationalistic threat. Are you there, Sean?
Yeah, you fell off a little bit.
Okay.
The last thing I heard was nationalistic threat.
So my question to you would be is, the fact that you prepare for it, how real are these game plans that are going on, these war games?
So, I mean, it depends on, what level you're planning for, right? So, and I can only speak specifically to the ones that I was involved in, and I can't, I won't discuss too many details, but the ones that I was involved in at a strategic level, well, they were at a strategic level, and they were long duration in scope, i.e., looking at the world 20 and 30 years in the future. So the farther out that you go, or the further out you go into the future, the less detail there's going to be about the detailed specifics of how these scenarios can go. So you have to make some very broad level assumptions, right? And then based on those assumptions, because there's a number of different things that can happen, right? So if you're looking, let's just take China and Russia, for instance. If Russia weakens, right, China strengthens, and vice versa, because they're so close in proximity. There could be a world where they operate a lot, closer together, right? It's probably a little bit less likely, but you have to make, certain assumptions. But the thing that you glean from longer term scenarios is it just leads to more questions as you're wargaming, because if you have a good opposing force, they're going to come up with things that you didn't consider. So if your premise is that you have technological dominance over somebody, then a good adversary will play up to their relative weakness in that category. And that's essentially what Russia's doing today with information operations and cyber war, right? They have very strong offensive capabilities in both, and they're playing up to that. Whereas it comes to their conventional military, it's very good, but it can't sustain very long like long distance deployments and things like that. But what they are good is they're good at playing in the shadows. So I don't know if you've read about this incident, but I believe it happened in February of 2018. There was a mercenary, but a private military company called the Wagner Group, and the Wagner Group is composed of exclusively of Russians, and there's an oligarch that typically uses them. And there was a situation where they were moving to a facility where they were in Syria, where there was a special forces team and maybe some Marines, and as there was about 200 of them, and a bunch of tanks and armored personnel carriers, and the folks on the ground didn't on the U.S. side didn't have that sort of thing. So at the highest levels, the U.S. government reached out to their counterparts on the Russian side and said, hey, we have a bunch of these private military contractors heading our way. Are they affiliated with you because if they get any closer, we're going to have to, and they attack, we're going to have to wipe them out. And the Russians had plausible deniability, and they said, "Oh no, it's not us." And it's an easy way for them to try to skirt and push the edge of that envelope without taking responsibility for it. Fast forward, and the U.S. forces there with drones, Apache helicopters, etc., wiped these guys out. They took massive casualties, and the U.S., as far as I know, didn't suffer a single casualty. So, in the current climate, there are a lot of these things are pushed to the edge, and they're a test, right? They're how far can we push in this region before something happens? And these things are happening constantly. And the place where it's scariest is on the cyber side, because on the cyber side, you can something that happens in the cyber domain can quickly translate into kinetic effects, and the kinetic effects can be bad enough that sometimes you have to ask the question: is if someone took out the North American power grid, does that merit a nuclear response? If somebody took out the Three Gorges Dam, right, shut it down and flooded, killing tens of millions of Chinese civilians, would that merit a response from the Chinese, nuclear response from the Chinese? And the answer is probably yes. So, we're in this kind of weird, part of history where, the rules aren't exactly clear, and they're still being worked out. And, the cyber domain is one of those places.
Sean, we've got about 6.5 minutes before we have to go to break tonight at the top of the hour. In regards to the way this can happen and looking at it, there's a number of different scenarios that could have played out over the last 70, 80 years, 100 years if you go back to World War I. All right, when we take a look at everything regarding, history, the way it played out, have you ever looked deeply into little scenarios like what would happen if Germany had won World War I or World War II? What if the outcome in Vietnam was different? What if the Cold War had gone the other way? I mean, these are heavy case scenarios to play out in one's brain.
Absolutely. I mean, take the Germans, for instance. Let's say they and you have to start with, a specific point where they may have won, and what what scenario would have played out. So let's say the U.S. had decided, instead of landing at Normandy, they decided to land at Calais, and I think that's where the Germans had expected an attack. So when the Americans landed on the beach at Normandy, and the Canadians and the British. I think U.S. casualties the first day. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is total Allied casualties or U.S. casualties, but I think it was something on the order of 18,000, right? And to give you a sense of that scale, in I think in Vietnam, casualties may have been, and I mean 18,000 deaths. I think in Vietnam was maybe 52,000, right? So you're talking, a little under a third of what you lost in the entire Vietnam War in one day on the beaches of Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, right? Those two beaches. Now, if they had gone to Calais, where the Germans had expected them to come, those numbers would have been even more dire. It would have been, extremely ugly. Now, I imagine that, at the time, the U.S. was also pushing its way. U.S. and Britain were pushing their way up, through Italy. So, I imagine the way that the U.S. would have responded to that is, they would have, retrenched in, in the United Kingdom, and then would have, shifted, some forces into Italy, and just kind of doubled down on that southern flank, and then potentially planned for another Normandy-like invasion. But again, I think it would have been a tough sell for the for the U.S. population, the Canadian population, the British population to do something if the casualties were, a multiple of that 18,000. At the same time, I don't know if the Germans would have really been able to hold against the Russians, right? So I imagine the only way that the Germans could successfully win in that war would be either to come to an agreement or armistice with the U.S. and the U.K. And then shift their efforts to the Eastern Front. So in that sort of scenario, what I imagine is that the cost of that invasion would have been so bad that the U.S. would have continued to fight on a little bit, but maybe came to some sort of agreement with the Germans. So while the Germans shifted their resources to the east and tried to stop the Russians. The other X factor in that whole equation is the development of the atomic bomb. So we dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. So the question is, once we developed that technology, would we have dropped it on Berlin? Like, did the Germans really have a chance at all? And then you could go into look at what the status of their nuclear program was, and I don't they were somewhat advanced, but my understanding is I think they were focused on kind of the wrong path, which I don't think they would have likely developed atomic weapons in the time to prevent us from dropping it on them. So I imagine that would have resulted in us either threatening, because we did kind of threaten the Japanese before we did it, but they ignored it because they had no conception of how powerful these weapons were. And I imagine we may have tried the same thing with the Germans in order to sue for peace. But who knows? Maybe if there was such a mass casualty event at Calais that maybe there would have been pressure for the United States to sue for peace a little bit earlier. As Operation Overlord commenced on June 6th, 1944. So it was a full 14 months before we had the bomb in an operational state to use it against anybody. So so I think if you were to extrapolate from that sort of scenario that I painted, you'd have kind of a situation where Germany controlled most of Western Europe. You'd have kind of a pseudo Cold War between the United States and Germany, and then you'd have an unstable peace between the Soviet Union and the Germans, and then U.S. policy would likely be to play the two off against each other, in the long run. And I think that's probably how it would evolve. But then the Germans would rapidly, come up with a nuclear weapon once we figured it out, much like the Russians did.
Well, let's continue this conversation when we get back from break, because I am just enthralled with this. What a great guest tonight, Sean Patrick Hazlett. He's got a great book on Amazon right now called Weird World War III. Let's discuss it more. What if our future was different? And what if our present was different? All because of a different past on Spaced Out Radio. Dude, this is so enthralling. So enthralling. Unbelievable.
I made that up on my feet.
Oh, that's fantastic. hey, my friend, I just got to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Otherwise known as Tessa. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent, and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the
I am back.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How was that?
Good. You're fantastic. Fantastic. I'm having a great time here. I think our audience is too. Let's go. I just got to say something. Okay, because I know there's a bunch of trolls out there right now that TMI, I know there's no audio on Revolution Radio because they didn't hit play on my play button. So they have to hit the play button. They didn't. But as far as the trolls in the chat room right now, I will not make any political comments on this show. This show is not about politics. I will not say it on the air. I will not. It doesn't matter what my opinions are or anything. We look at this show to give people a break from the world's reality and get into some weird, strange topics that we do this. Take your shit to another another channel because it isn't going to work here. You can keep spamming us. We'll just keep erasing them. But you know what? My politics do not matter. Anybody else's politics in here do not matter. So just take it elsewhere and we'll be good. Because, you know, I don't like what's going on in the world in a lot of places. Neither do a lot of people. That's why they're here. And that's why they come to escape. So you pulling the shit that you're pulling in our chat room right now, it isn't going to work because we're not going there. So you might as well leave. I'm not trying to be rude. Okay? Not trying to be rude at all. All right? But we just don't talk politics here. So just sit back and enjoy the show like the rest of us, man. Because we're here for a hell of a time and we're here to relax and fade away from the world for a while. Here we go with hour 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, waiting for the snow to fall. Yeah, snow in October. Wonderful. Lovely. I'm looking forward to that already. Please note the sarcasm. I want to remind everybody that we really enjoy all of you tuning in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Clam took it easy on me tonight. Clangfarb. Clangfarb is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Author of Weird World War III, Sean Patrick Hazlett, is here tonight on the show. And you know what? We're talking about what if history went differently. Think about that for a second. All right? Look back in history, major events. What if things went differently? What if the U.S. and Russia went to war back in the Soviet Union era? Think about USA and China. What if they went to war? What if Japan had defeated the United States and the Allies, like Canada, where I am, in World War II? And not just that, but I mean, Sean, it's almost like a butterfly effect when we think about a lot of these events. You know, how would this change the entire aspect of what is going on this planet right now?
Yeah, so you know, tiny little changes, you know, can have, you know, a massive impact, you know, way down the line. So, you know, I'll do, you know, a quick, I'll give you a quick example. What if in the, you know, I talked about this at the very beginning, you know, where you had Charles E. Hazlett at Little Round Top, right, which is at the far, you know, flank on the, you know, the Gettysburg battlefield. So let's say that Colonel Chamberlain, you know, the regimental commander of, I think it's, I'm going to get the unit wrong, but, you know, one of the, you know, main regiments. What if he had gotten, you know, the flu, or he'd gotten sick, you know, a day before, you know, that third day at Gettysburg? You know, how might that have changed the war? So let's you know, speculate on that. Well, maybe you don't have that charge down the hill. You know, maybe the Confederates have more time to reinforce their position and, you know, kind of push to the, you know, to the far flank and, you know, begin to outflank the Union side. Let's say General Meade, who's the, you know, the commanding general on the Union side at the time, you know, let's say he, you know, reassesses his forces and decides that it's a stalemate. The, you know, the Confederates, you know, even in a stalemate, they can claim victory. Let's say you don't have, you know, Pickett's charge at the end, you know, and let's say that both sides kind of withdrawal in some sort of a stalemate. The Confederates claim victory, and the Union decides to sue for peace. So you get to that point because you take one key individual out of the battle. If the U.S. sued, the Union sued for peace, then you're going to have this tenuous peace between a Confederacy in the South that still has the quote unquote peculiar institution of slavery. Its entire economy or much of its economy is based on that. Over the time in the succeeding or the following years, the Union becomes much more industrialized as it was continuing to do. And at the same time, the Confederacy is based on an institution that's heavily dependent on slave labor. It would likely have become increasingly isolated from, Great Britain, for instance. Maybe France might use that, might try to play that, the division. You might have kind of like a kind of a Cold War between the United Kingdom and France, where the United Kingdom supports one side or the other. I imagine that inside the United Kingdom, the population there was increasingly abolitionist. So potentially they likely reassess their relationship with the North, the Union. And at the same time, the French, start to develop a relationship, given historical, connections to, the Louisiana territory and things like that, and uses the South as a wedge against, to stir a proxy war against, the United Kingdom. So, imagine that sort of period. But I think over time, the lack of the South's, transition to a more, stronger industrial base would likely have it wither on the vine. And I think you kind of have, the most similar analog to that would be what happened between, East and West Germany, right? You had a very strong and robust West German economy, and East Germany withered on the vine. And I think over time, the international pressure that the South would get, they would likely have transitioned out of this, their pre-war economy. It was heavily dependent on African slaves. As a result, I think there would be, there might be flare-ups here and there. With the John Browns of the world who go into the South to agitate and to have lots of slave uprisings and things like that. And I think over time, given the following decades, the institution of slavery would have likely ended, faded away. And there's some chance that some states would achieve some sort of a reconciliation or a reunification in the United States. There have been, I know Harry Turtledove has a really good series called Guns of the South, where that division persisted well into World War II. But I don't think it would necessarily have turned that way. But anyway, that's speculation on you remove one key historical figure and you have that butterfly effect, that domino effect that echoes into the ages.
It's so hard for me to fathom. Okay, it's so hard, and I'm sure a lot of people out there maybe just like me, maybe not, but to think about all of these what if type scenarios in a position like yours that you have in your daytime job. That is your job. What if? But the fact that if we look at futurism, if you look at events today, All right, what is going on in the world today? You know, there's conflict in the Middle East. There's tensions with Russia. There's tensions with China. There's tensions all around the world. All right. How do you play out the what ifs? Because you have to be prepared for any type of scenario that could potentially affect every person on this planet. That is stressful.
Well, it's stressful if you fail to predict it. But it's definitely it's incredibly intellectually stimulating. And by thinking through these things, you know, there are certain key geostrategic, you can call them choke points, or you know, geostrategic regions of the world that you have to keep a close eye on. And as long as you are able to secure those areas, and to kind of game what the different scenarios are, you know, you can prepare for them. So I'll give you some examples. So let's take China, for instance. Now, there are a number of areas where there are fault lines between China and the rest of the world. And, you know, the COVID pandemic certainly has not enhanced China's position in the world, particularly when it comes to, you know, clearly and accurately presenting information to other countries that could save lives. At the same time, China is, you know, has the potential to be the largest market in the world, given it's got over 1 billion people. So there's tensions, both positive and negative, where, you know, the United States and Canada, for instance, are also inextricably tied to China. So, as an example, if you look at you know, key electrical components that are in your iPhone, right? There's only U.S. companies and, you know, major multinational companies have, you know, over the last, you know, 20 to 30 years, have spent so much time and energy trying to keep their costs low and to tighten their, you know, and to get their, you know, supply chains much more efficient, and, you know, get cheaper products to customers. And the way that they've done that is they've, you know, outsourced a lot of the labor in key operations in China. So, for instance, when I look at, you know, key electrical components in your iPhone, there's only one place in the world where many of those are made. And that's in Shenzhen, China. Now, that's great for China in the sense that it's helped fuel the rise of an educated middle class. And it's great for, you know, multinational companies because it's dramatically driven down the cost to produce those things. But the issue the issue with that is that the supply chains are not diversified, and we saw the threat and risk of that, you know, immediately during the COVID outbreak, when you know, a lot of medical companies tried to get, you know, critical PPE to their citizens. You know, it had to come from China, and China was, you know, not hoarding, but keeping a lot of that equipment for its, or limiting the export of that equipment because, you know, wanted to take care of its own population, and that's, you know, that's an understandable motive when you're, you know, developing the national security strategy of a company, of a country. You have to focus on what your vital national interests are. And if China had kind of, you know, advantaged the rest of the world, you know, versus its own people, one of the biggest threats to China is not an external threat; it's the threat of internal instability. And to give you you know, kind of quantify some of that, by some estimates, and this might be an old estimate, but, you know, with the one-child policy, the Chinese have a ton of excess males. And throughout history, China also has a history of, you know, peasant revolts and things like that are due to having, you know, too many males and not enough marriageable females in the population. And there've been a lot of revolts that have been driven by this. So it's something that is a vital national interest to the Chinese, which is, you know, keeping their population stable. How do you keep your population stable? Well, if you have 30 million excess males, you do things that are outside of what you would expect a traditionalist Chinese culture to do. like you would advocate homosexuality, right? You would, so that's kind of on the, cultural side, which the Chinese have done. The other thing that you would do is you would export some of these excess males to places like Africa. If you notice the way that, when the Chinese go into a country and they, extract resources and do things like that, like much like European colonials do, and much like European or U.S. and European multinational companies do today. U.S. multinationals and European multinationals, as well as even the colonials, they would use native labor to extract some of these resources. They would hire, people who are already on the ground. Whereas what the Chinese do is they just bring in, Chinese laborers from China, and they kind of do all the work, extract the resources, and leave the local population to fend for itself. But this is not like I'm not trying to advocate whether or not it's good or bad. It's just China has its own particular situation, and security risks. So in terms of that's kind of where they stand. So given this link, the Chinese, the third part of that is the Chinese also want their economy to really work. So on the one hand, there's lots of fault lines. So, you have the South China Sea, where there are 6 or 7 countries that claim, ownership over certain, over the Spratly Islands and, other islands in that area. And the Chinese have been, since the mid 1990s, have been systematically building infrastructure on those islands, and in many cases international waters. So that's a big potential fault line. It goes without saying that Taiwan is always a potential fault line. So in 1996, we sent 2 aircraft carriers through the Strait of Taiwan when after the Chinese started doing missile tests near that area. So that's another potential fault line. Right now, in the in June, there was an incident in the Galwan Valley, in the Himalayan foothills along the line of actual control between India and China. And, there were actually, 20 Indian soldiers that died, and potentially, 40 to 50 Chinese soldiers that died. And in that area, you're not allowed to, carry rifles or heavy weapons. So, these folks these soldiers killed each other using either clubs with concertina wires, wrapped around them, or just bare hands. And you had people who were thrown into ravines with sub-zero, water, and died of hypothermia and all sorts of crazy things. So that's another potential, fault line. Russia and China have always historically had, issues in, kind of North Asia, at the kind of the edge of Siberia. And then you can, you add other, the Chinese, import a huge percentage of their oil. By my last check, it was something like 90%. So there are also critical choke points that are, that are potentially fraught for them, like the Strait of Malacca, right? If you shut that down, that's a huge risk to the Chinese. And I'm sure the Chinese are finding ways to war game that, to find alternatives and alternative means to get the oil that they need. And then you also have, cyber right now. So that, the Chinese are attempting to hack into everything. But, in terms of, actually taking down somebody's grid or, taking out or destroying specific infrastructure, the only real incident that, at least from a cyber warfare perspective, where that really made a difference was with Stuxnet in Iran, where you spun the cyclotrons on their or the on the SCADA systems that they had with Siemens.
Right. Sean, I want to ask you a question, and maybe this is a little off topic. I don't know, but we seem to see a real space race going on. And I saw a term yesterday about the new Cold War of space between Russia and the United States. The United States is no longer using Soyuz rockets to launch into the ISS anymore. It's all going to be from American-made rockets, thanks to companies like SpaceX. Is this now the next worry that we have on the planet is what is going to happen in space?
I wouldn't say it's a worry. I would say it's actually, the last time that we woke up and really started innovating in space was with Sputnik, and that was a wake up call. So I actually think it's a good thing from a competition standpoint, and it's something that we absolutely have to pay attention to and make sure that we're competitive in space. As an example, our global positioning satellite system. If you take that out, you're effectively deaf, dumb, and blind, and you have to go back to using a compass and reading a map the old-fashioned way. And even the way that we drop bombs and things like that are tied to GPS and all that good stuff. It is critically important that we continue to innovate in space, and even from a just as a species in general. Elon Musk has always said that you want to make sure that you don't want to place your bet all on one rock, right? You want to make sure that the human species is able to diversify and to survive in case something outside of our own struggles and foibles cause, right? If you have an asteroid that hits the planet, throws fallout over, and we go into nuclear winter, go into like a cooling period where nobody survives, right? So it is critically important that we continue to innovate and test that technology. Now, part of the fact that it's it's definitely a national security concern, and it's something that we have to be mindful and we have to develop. But I think that the net result, though, will be a net positive for the human race.
Well, we've got just under 2 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Sean Patrick Hazlett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Just the battle for space. All right, going to Mars, putting bases on the moon. There seems to be a lot of chest thumping in regards to everything above our planet. And I know that drives the flat earthers crazy. Okay, I know that. But the fact that we now have this brand new space race going on where we even see more countries involved, India, China, just to name a couple. And I'm looking at this thinking, what happens if we get to the moon? What happens if we put that base on the moon by 2024 or 2026? All right, there is some ramifications that we have to worry about. We got 60 seconds.
Sure. So there's actually, funny you mentioned that, there's actually a story in Weird World War III that talks about it. It's the very last story. It's about, it assumes that the Soviets and the United States got to the moon pretty early. So it happens in 1986. But there is a story about cosmonauts and astronauts, with moon bases. And then there's a third presence that makes itself known. So, imagine the politics of that and the strategy behind that. Who do you support? Do you support something that's a non-human species that is fighting your enemy, or do you join your enemy, and kind of fight a common threat to humanity? Or is it even a threat to humanity? Or is it just a threat to one side? So those questions are answered in the final story by John Langan. It's called Second Front.
Right. Well, you know what? When we come back, I want to know what your thoughts are on maybe different timelines that are going on, because maybe, just maybe, this all has a tie together. I don't know what you know about it, but guess what? We're going to question you about it, because that's what we do here on Spaced Out Radio. More with Sean Patrick Hazlett, pardon me, right here on Spaced Out Radio. This is sounding awesome so far, by the way. Awesome.
Oh, it doesn't sound like I'm fading yet?
No, dude, I love this topic because there's so many ways, I'll be honest with you, man, we talk a lot of woo around here, okay? We do. So to actually have, almost like precognitive thought of what could have happened or what could happen or what is happening, or these are the avenues that are being built right now and we don't know which one we're going to take, it intrigues me.
Yeah, there's literally infinite possibilities in terms of how a lot of these things can manifest themselves. And there's always going to be somebody, some gadfly out there that predicts something, and then they're going to suddenly look like a genius. But it's even a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
True. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on right now too. So, it'll be, and this year, this year's been a crazy year.
Right. I thought it was quite interesting today that, totally off topic from the show, but I thought it was quite interesting today that YouTube purged a bunch of different channels, conspiracy type channels again today. And then shortly after they get called out on social media about it, Twitter goes down for a bunch of hours. It was very...
Yeah, I think I have a theory behind that. I don't know if it's correct, but again, I haven't spent a lot of time researching it. But yesterday there was a New York Post article that Facebook and Twitter, were just like aggressively taking down anybody who posted it, and they were even banning people. We're not banning, but like forcing them off the website, including a prominent science fiction author, just for even talking about it. Now, the reason they gave for pushing him off was, something that he had done, a few weeks ago. But I would suspect that, that was effectively a declaration of war against, half the population. I'm not going to say which side, so I wouldn't be surprised if, there's hackers on a particular side went and did a denial of service attack on Twitter. Because the timing was like right after.
Right. Yeah.
Right after they. So.
Yeah, I totally.
Or it could have been. It could have been the Russians.
I was standing right in the middle of the forest, literally, pissed off that my Bigfoot sighting or my Bigfoot site had zero action. And I figured, well, I got a little bit of a signal here. Let's check up what's going on. And everything is down. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah. But or it could be like a internet, like a, non-US actor trying to use that as cover, right? And trying to blame it on, one side to stoke tensions in the US.
Could be. That's the beauty of it all. We don't know. We're all involved in one techno game. Oh, well.
Yep.
I guess that's where we say shit happens. Right? That's where we say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got about 90 seconds. I want to give a big shout out to Bigfoot Michigan Rob and everybody at Scoreboard Lounge. Brittany, you're doing a great job running it for Rob. Thank you so much for the super chat. Kyle Evans, thank you. Northern UFOs, we appreciate the support. Manitoba Becky, much love for it. And Cat Chaser as well. I really do appreciate everyone helping us on out here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell thingy, which apparently lets you know that we're going to have a show on. And love the support, man. Love the support. Thank you so much. I got a great YouTube crowd, man. And it just keeps getting bigger every day. It's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Philip Wilson, welcome to the show, man. He goes, do you know the book 1984? You are lousing tough with reality. I don't know what that means, but yes, I remember that book 1984. Amazing how
It's
real.
a great book.
You know what? You know what even is even more trippy is, what's his name? Now you know the rest of the story. Back in the 60s, why can I not remember his name? It's like a radio idol of mine. Anyways, he did this piece about if I were the devil. Should listen to it sometime. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the Where am I sitting? Captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue our great conversation tonight with the author of Weird World War III, Sean Patrick Hazlett. Yeah, we're talking about what would happen if history didn't go the way it normally would, or the way it's been written out in the past. Sean, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
I'm going to take you down a little bit of the woo side, because we like a little bit of woo around here. And if you're not familiar with the word woo, you're going to find out real quick. All right?
Okay.
All right. So woo is about the weird, the strange, and the unusual. And I often think about a lot of this. When you're studying about a book or you're looking into this, have you ever wondered or thought, Sean, that maybe there are different dimensions or different timelines which are running simultaneously with this one, where these actual events that you talk about, like Weird World War III, are actually happening?
I mean, it's certainly possible, at least on the alternative history side. So, assuming the same laws of physics, the same the way that we conceive that reality works. Now, so that's kind of the alternative history aspect of it. There are also other things in the book that do also still follow the laws of physics and are a little bit more likely or plausible than some of the other stories. So, a story where there's kind of demons infiltrating the U.S. military, as an example. I think that's a little bit less plausible than there's another story in the book that is eminently plausible, that is something that is akin to a really good Black Mirror episode. And that's, the author is Erica Satifka, and her story is, it's a long story, but it's roughly called the Denver Incident. And what it does is it imagines, imagine if there's a video game that's so addictive and so fun to play, and it's a kind of a immersive, augmented reality game. So I don't, if you ever are familiar with like a Pokemon Go, right, where it just, you look through your phone and you see everything that you normally see, but there's little characters in it, etc. So just imagine an augmented reality game that's super addictive. And what this game ultimately does is it gets U.S. military personnel to just do very simple, tiny tasks. We're talking about the butterfly effect that you talked about earlier, which is it's a concept from chaos theory, right? Whereas small butterfly spins, flaps its wings in China, and that causes a flood in the U.S. Based on the trigger of events. So what this game does is it gets U.S. service personnel to do just little tiny things, and it has a cascading effect such that the U.S. military nukes one of its own cities. And the whole story is written in terms of like an oral history of what happened, and it interviews different people who talk about it. and as you're going through the story, what you realize is how plausible that actually is. And of course, everyone suspects the Russians and all that good stuff. And I'm not going to give the rest of the story away, but it's an extremely well done story, and something that, if there were an alternative timeline, is completely and utter, completely plausible. Could absolutely happen. The other story, the story that I talked about, John Langan's story, and for those of you who don't know who John Langan is, he is a Bram Stoker Award winner for his book The Fisherman, which is a great book. I think you should all check it out. But his last story is a story we talked about earlier with cosmonauts and astronauts on the moon, and it's 1986. What I didn't mention is, as those folks are on the moon, they're looking down on Earth, which has suffered a limited nuclear exchange between both powers, and they can see the way he describes the way Earth's atmosphere is swirling and black. It has a really dark mood to the whole story. But with the exception of kind of that third element, that the kind of the alien presence in that story, that's also an eminently plausible past that could potentially have happened if both sides had continued really pushing the space race, and the Russians had ultimately gone to the moon, or if the Russians had gone to the moon and established a secret moon base that we didn't know about and discovered. So I think there's there's definitely a lot of possibilities to play with that. And in the kind of that Everett many worlds theory, it's a lot of these things are perfectly plausible in some alternate quantum universe that's branched off and has changed trillions of times since then.
Do you think that if I have, let me rephrase this, if you don't mind. Have you been following the entire UFO story over the last couple of years regarding the USS Nimitz and the 3 videos that were released? Okay,
Yep.
So that the whole UAP phenomena that we're now calling this, we can't identify UFOs with aliens anymore. We're not even supposed to call them UFOs because somehow UFOs has become politically correct, and so on and so forth. It always makes me wonder, we all look at the United States, in the Western world, we all look at the United States as the leaders of this. What do we do? What do we do, Big Daddy? How do we take care of this? And we're waiting for that confirmation. We're waiting for that disclosure. We're waiting for everything. But we also, and myself included, tend to forget. Great Britain's going through the same thing. Japan's going through the same thing. China, Russia. And it all, to me, ties into the space race that is on right now, and potentially any sort of contact that is out there. Do you believe, or do you see the fact that if we are being visited by species from other planets or life forms from other planets right now on Earth, that this could be the potential for the reason why we see a lot of tension going on to try and get back into space and deeper into our own solar system and galaxy?
So I'll answer this in different ways, and I'll preface it with, I don't know the answer, but I can speculate on possibilities. So let's just accept as a premise that for thousands of years, if you just look at probabilities, right? The Earth has been around for I believe it's 4.5 billion years, something like that. The universe has been, or the galaxy has been around for many times that. And the human species has been around for maybe 1 million years, and civilization has probably emerged in the last 20,000 years. And we went from a cave dwelling species to a species that has put men on our closest men in our closest satellite. So the question is if against the time scale of hundreds of billions of years. And you look at, they're constantly we're constantly discovering, habitable planets as we gaze further out into the universe. The probability that there have been other civilizations, other intelligent life forms that have evolved, lived and perished, and some that may have continuously evolved for millions of years, is it's probably pretty high. And if you believe that, then the probability that they may have visited Earth is also potentially pretty high. Now the question is, if you're the U.S. government, and let's just accept the premise that none of these no one has revealed themselves to us. We're just seeing this strange phenomena that does some things that modern physics can't explain, unless you kind of think in terms of like gravity, anti-gravity drives and things like that. Stuff that has only recently been confirmed, right? So as an example, Kip Thorne at Caltech recently won the Nobel Prize for the theoretical physics behind the gravity waves. And the only reason that not the only reason, but one of the reasons that he got it was there was an experimental confirmation of that, and that's kind of the fact that he theorized it was correct is a big deal. So we're just at the beginning of kind of understanding even basic phenomena like how gravity works. So, imagine, somebody way ahead of us is able to do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, imagine if you're U.S. government, you have no idea what this stuff is. You just see it. It can outmaneuver. It circles your aircraft, can outmaneuver them, can shut off engines, can do whatever the heck it wants.
But that's only, so the question, Sean, that's only, though, the people who may have, poo-pooed this idea over years, decades, of not wanting to believe the phenomena, yet we are now learning, and everything that we have, that us tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists have thought is true is now becoming true to the mainstreamers. Like, well, we didn't know this. Really? This is possible? Even politicians.
Yes. So I would again, go back 50 years, whatever, or go back to Roswell, okay, as an example. Let's say you're in the position at the time, and you're running you're kind of in charge of the government, and this craft crashes, you recover bodies. The technology is something you just is unfathomable to you. It doesn't make any sense. What is your incentive to reveal this to the public, especially and keep in mind this is roughly 20 years after the War of the Worlds phenomena, right, where there was a radio show talking about an alien invasion, and it caused a panic in the U.S. So, with that in the minds of at least the people at that time, you don't know what it is. You've recovered this advanced technology. You don't know if any of your adversaries. It's also in the under the shadow of the Cold War. You don't want the Soviets to know that you have this information, and in some cases you might not even know if if you recovered bodies, you would know it's not the Soviets. But in some cases there might be some stuff flying around. You don't even know if it's the Soviets. But at the end of the day, you're likely to keep it hush hush because you don't really have a good message for the American people. Like, look, we recovered a craft that's more advanced than anything we have. We're completely defenseless. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to accept it. It's not a great message to send to the American public. At the same time, you buy yourself some time, right? So you get to look at these devices and kind of understand how they work, and then shortly thereafter, there's revolutionary technology that came out. So the transistor I think was invented in kind of the early 1950s. Which if you're an engineer, right, an electrical engineer, and you look at how those things work, and they're just to me at least, and again, when I was pursuing my degree, a lot of it is just very counterintuitive. Like, how could somebody have done something this advanced, and in order just to generate a 1 or 0 signal, right? To get things work, but it revolutionized the computer industry. In fact, it was a huge advantage for us over the Soviets, right? So all our aircraft, had all this digital technology, and they were still using, vacuum tubes and things like that on their aircraft. In fact, when we, in the Cold War, when we were looking at some of their MiGs, we thought they were preparing for a nuclear war because they had, analog, a lot of analog circuitry and no digital. But it turns out that they just hadn't, gone as far as we had in solid state physics. So, at the end of the day, there's also an advantage to keeping it secret because you as a country can, the clock is starting because you may also know that these craft have crashed in other countries and they haven't revealed this information to you. So there's also a desire to try to exploit as much of that technology you can before your competitors do. So, again, it's this cloak of secrecy that drives paranoia that the paranoia that happened during the Cold War. And the other thing that's kind of interesting to note, particularly in the U.S., when there's the riots that have happened, the insurance bill for those riots, insurance companies are predicting that the cost of those riots is the highest in U.S. history. So, if one of your concerns is that by revealing the existence of crashed down UFOs or contact with extraterrestrials or transdimensional beings, who knows, whatever you're talking about. If your fear was of civil unrest, maybe by revealing or slow dripping some of this information, you could help. That would serve as a release valve for all that energy. Maybe by giving people some hope that there's something out there that's, more advanced but benign. And by the way, who knows if it's benign? Like anything out in the world, right? There's things that are good, and there's things that are, things that are in your interest, and the things that are against your interest. And if you were to assume that that if there were alien species out there that are far more advanced than us, some are probably have interest in us. Some of them might be malevolent, and some might see us as ants, and something that's just escapes their notice entirely. So I can understand why there's a lot of secrecy, and I understand why there would be a lot of effort to undermine people who bring these things out. And I'm going to go really dark. Imagine. And again, I'm just spinning a scenario. I have no idea if there's any truth to this. But imagine if, we made contact in the 50s with these things. Imagine, Eisenhower made some sort of a pact. And part of that pact was, you give us technology, we let you experiment on our people.
Oh, now you're going back to the Creator Treaty there.
Yeah. So imagine if I go dark like that. Imagine what would be unearthed. And in a situation like that,
I have to cut you off there because I'm actually quite surprised that you know about that. I don't know why, but I'm kind of caught off guard and excitedly caught off guard that you know about the potential of the Creator Treaty.
So I don't know what the treaty's called, but I know about. I can tell you all about like Bob Lazar, the stories and things like that. Like I don't know if any of this is true, but it fascinates me too. And it drives a lot of creativity and trying to get, about I think he in Area 51, right? Or I think he called it S1. Like there were, we saw a number of different craft and one of them was recovered during an archaeological expedition, apparently. And that's, that sends your mind into real high creative mode. Like how long, if that's true, how long have these things been here? What was it doing? Where did they recover it? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the whole idea behind it. We just don't know. Is the race to space and deep space because we know what's out there? And like I said, it doesn't matter what country you're from. All right. Now, obviously, more other bigger countries, stronger countries, more militarized countries will have more of a say in what goes on than a place like Canada or Belgium or Australia for that instance. But I mean, this is where it gets a little weird.
Yeah, and there's actually a story. There's a story in World War III that looks a little bit at the scenario, and the scenario is that the Russians gain a hold of some antiquated technology from an alien civilization, and they're able to dominate the U.S. And the story starts in that sort of event, and there's a two people who are trying to shift the tide, and it goes. The author is Stephen Lawson, and he is a Black Hawk, a pilot, and he talks about kind of flying the helicopter in and discovering the technology and finding a way out of that pickle. So a lot of this there's plenty of stories that you can whether true or not, right? And look, I don't know. I've never personally experienced anything like this. I've seen weird things. But the weird things are, I've seen, like weird contrails in the desert, like, puff dash, which is typically associated with ramjet or scramjet technology. And where I was stationed, it was just south of China Lake Naval Weapons Center, where they tested a lot of new technology and things like that that would be classified. So. Yeah, there's just a lot of places where this stuff can go.
Unbelievable. We have just over 2 minutes here before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, Sean Patrick Hazlett is our guest tonight on the show. So, quickly here, do you think that any of this space race, from what you learned through work, and I realize there's not much you could say on that because there's a lot of, classified information there, but do you think that the space race is or the Space Force is eerily coincidental to when all of this UFO stuff is coming out?
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's even if there are things, even if we don't. So let's take a super conservative view. Even if let's assume that we don't know what's out there, but we're seeing this stuff, and we have no idea how to defend against it. But we have, maybe we have an idea of where some of it's coming from. I think the drive to get ourselves ready as fast as possible is something that any national security establishment should be doing. Not only that, there are other things that are completely unrelated to, an extraterrestrial threat. I mean, there's threats from, asteroids impacting the Earth and things like that we're not ready for, and we need to really get up to speed on that. Let's say even if we knew an asteroid was coming to hit the Earth, right? Like there's not much we could do to take it out. Like, are you going to put a nuke up there? But even if you put it up there, the way that there's no air up there, so it's the kind of the gamma radiation from the nuclear weapon that would be what would be shoving the asteroid away from the Earth. And that's basically all you can do. You can't destroy it, but you can attempt to displace it. So we have to get smart on that if we want to survive as a species,
right?
Independent of whether or not there's an extraterrestrial threat. It's just one of many things that we need to be on top of.
For sure. And my friend, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We have author Sean Patrick Hazlett on for another 30 minutes. When we come back, I want to ask him about another famous book that seems to be almost like a Bible of what is going on today. The author of Weird World War III, Sean Patrick Hazlett, continues in Hour 3 on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Awesome job so far, man.
I'm drawing from every
oh, you're doing great. Are you having fun though?
piece of real estate for the. Oh, of course. I love having a platform to talk about this
Wonderful.
stuff. I just hope it's well received.
No, I'm loving you, man. And looking at the comments in our chat room, they're loving you too. Hey, my friend, I'm just going to quickly run outside, take my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Spaced Out Radio.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spicing up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that peaks.
All right, I'm back. And it's snowing.
All right.
And it's snowing.
Oh, you're going to hate me for saying this, but I envy you. It was 99 degrees where I am.
Oh, my God. I envy you. I envy you. Let's see here. Hold on. What's the temperature? Right now, it is 37 Fahrenheit, 3 degrees Celsius, and snowing. Damn it. Oh, my God. It's Sunday. It's supposed to snow as well. Oh, I don't even have my firewood all ready yet. Son of a gun. The stresses of living in central British Columbia, my friend. This is stressful now.
But you live around beautiful mountains, right? I'm assuming, right?
I'm on top of the mountains, but there are beautiful mountains around here. Yes.
Oh, that's the life.
Where are you?
I'm in Pleasant Hill, California. So it's the East San Francisco Bay. So I live in the place where the sky was red for a few days.
Oh, yes. That was me 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we were mercifully, far enough away from it, but it was pretty eerie. It was like it's like being on Mars in terms of the way everything was just red. We had like a coppery color. It's weird.
Yeah, I know what that's like. This year it's just been so damp here. It's actually been good. The only fire smoke we got was in September when the fires were raging in Oregon and Washington and Northern California. It all blew up here.
Yeah, that was that last year for you or this year?
No, that was this year. 3 years ago, I was evacuated from my house for 15 days.
Oh God, that's not.
Yeah,
fun.
our entire town was evacuated. Like there were 60 within an hour's drive. There were over 60,000 people evacuated from their homes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was a little crazy.
Not great.
No.
Yeah, not great.
All right, we got 15 seconds left. I want to say thank you we got 131 or 132 people watching on YouTube right now. And thank you to each and every one of you for tuning us in along with our terrestrial affiliates. And I hope you're enjoying this. Here's hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. I'm Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you, and we appreciate earning your listening ears. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Clangfarb. Clangfarb is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Sean Patrick Hazlett. He's got a great book on Amazon called Weird World War III. And I highly suggest you check this out. It's literally about futurism and what would have happened if the U.S. had gone to war with the Soviet Union. And we bring you back right now, Sean. And I want to ask you, because for a lot of people, myself included, and our listeners, over the last number of years, the last couple of years especially, we all seem to use the reference book of 1984 by George Orwell as almost the exact photocopy of what we're starting to turn into. We're now in a bubble, living in our own bubbles due to COVID. We are so used to technology. We see over the last 25, 30 years, a lot of people gaining weight and becoming more lazy because we don't have to work for things anymore, whether it's food or whether it's technology. Everything is voice activated or finger activated by an app or a cell phone or something along those lines. I mean, you look at the little Google Home Minis, that came out that were all the rage last Christmas. I mean, this is becoming a real reality here, and it's almost biblical, 1984. What's your thoughts?
Well, it can go, a number of different ways. I'm going to go the dark. I'm just going to talk through the dark way because that's a little bit more interesting. So let's say that, technology continues to move at the same pace, or let's say accelerate at the same pace because it continues to accelerate. Imagine a future where virtual reality is so good that it becomes indistinguishable from actual reality. Then you're kind of in a bit of a pickle because how do you motivate people to continue to build civilization, continue to do all the things that are needed to keep civilization going. So there's going to be, a level of temptation that's just going to make it, difficult to want, people to work. Now that's great for governments, right? Because you have a docile, placid population that's not going to, is less likely to have uprisings and things like that. And there's a lot of, things on the horizon that help make that easier. Even in the States, right? In California, cannabis is legal, and in Colorado, cannabis is legal, and there's a drive for legalization of cannabis. And for the most part, there's some there's some exceptions, but it's something that helps make pacify the population a little bit more. And same thing with things are so much easier that people are losing some of the basic skills that our forefathers had. So as an example, my grandfather, he learned to navigate using celestial navigation techniques. I think at the Naval Academy, that's one they used to teach that all the time. I don't know if they still teach it, but it's a bit of a lost art. Even in the military, when we did training, we used compass and a map and learned how to do intersection and resection and all that great stuff by if you're lost and things like that. But when we went out and and that's just kind of basic individual soldier training. But when we went and trained at the National Training Center, everybody had GPS. Everybody was navigating with GPS and fighting that way. And our adversaries can use GPS jammers and things like that can make you deaf, dumb, and blind. So I think we're definitely losing a lot as a species, even with just the increasing specialization that we have. Right? There's not a lot of people out there who have kind of basic survival skills. Right? Like how many people out there know how to farm? How many people out there know how to build something out of, a shelter out of wood and, just skills that even my parents, my father, knew how to do. Our cars, our automobiles are becoming, are increasingly integrated with solid state devices, so that even if something broke, you couldn't really fix it because it's embedded in a chip that, the circuit is microscopic. So, you'd have to have access to a much more sophisticated semiconductor fab, to fix it. You can't fix it anymore. It's not like, an old 1950s automobile. It was all analog. You could, kind of roll up your sleeves and fix. So, there's a lot of potential, in the hands of somebody who, wants to maintain control of the population, like the way that the Great Firewall in China is an example of that. I had friends who were working over there when there were incidents in Hong Kong, for instance, and they had no idea. They had no idea it was happening until I kind of texted them from across the ocean saying, "Are you following what's going on here?" And they had no idea. So the scary part about this is if that technology is consolidated into the hands of either a hugely dominant corporation or a dominant country with government with totalitarian characteristics, it provides them with the technology to shut off information and to shape our reality. So you think about where you get your news sources, right? They probably the majority of them come through a screen. And, have you independently verified everything you get through primary sources? No. There's some level of trust. And, the more that, an electronic medium becomes the sole source of information you get, the easier it is going to be for somebody to control things. It's the easier it is for people to manipulate history. Like if you're not going and looking at primary documents in a library, right? It's pretty easy to change history, right? We were never at war with East Asia. We were always at war with Eurasia, right? Or et cetera. Like to quote a passage from 1984. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. All the kind of turning things on their head, and also just the ability to get data. Like every click that you make now runs through an algorithm and is monetized and is sold to the highest bidder for to try to predict your behavior, and even to try to steer and influence your behavior into making buying decisions that you might not necessarily have done in the past. Layer on top of that machine learning algorithms, where at some point in the near future you're going to reach the singularity where artificial intelligence is able to do more and or the same or more than a human being is. And then at what point how do we as a species keep up? And the answer is we don't in our current manifestation, right? If you look at what Elon Musk would talk about, you're going to have to start integrating that technology into your biology, and we see signs of that. My daughter has a cochlear implant, which has a chip in her skull and allows her to hear better. Like we're already kind of moving down that path, and it's going to be interesting to see how humanity adapts to it. Even going into space. Let's say we have a Martian colony, right? Over time, the human species itself will continue to evolve, right? You're going to have people who are probably taller, in Martian gravity. You're going to have people who probably weaker, but have other aspects of adaptation that make them more survivable in a Martian or an adapted Martian climate. So I think 1984 continues to be a cautionary tale, but I don't think that has to be the only future. But it's a possible future, and it's a possible future for certain countries, and others might be a little bit better off. There might be there's an opportunity to be empowered by all this, to reach levels and heights of human civilization that we couldn't have dreamed of, a generation or two ago. So it's just all about how these technologies evolve over time. But what I'm worried about is it takes, government and it takes society a much longer time to adapt to new technology than it does to develop a new technology.
Right.
So
that goes back to what a long time ago, 30 years ago, Ben Rich, when he was the head of Lockheed Skunk Works, saying that they already have the technology to get ET back home again. All right, that we haven't even seen the light of day of the technology that Skunk Works is working on, to paraphrase. And I look at it, and I'll throw it back at you this way. In regards to technology, the way people are acting towards it, are we moving too fast, or is this just natural transition that the human mind hasn't caught up to yet?
I think you can see it from social instability and destabilization. I think we're moving too fast. And even social media, something that's a very simple concept. We haven't figured it out yet, and we haven't figured out how to combat it. And as a result, it's just there's so much noise, and it's tough to the signal to noise ratio is extremely low. It's hard to figure out what's really going on because there's just you're inundated with information, and the people who are going to be successful in this sort of environment are the people who are able to efficiently filter signal from noise. And it's tough, and it's something that even our enemies use to distract us. So I feel like it's happening a little fast, and the way that you can see it is just what are the sources of instability, and what are the accelerants that are being poured onto that fire. And I feel like social media is something that can amplify that. But it's not, like any technology, right? It's not all for ill or for good, right? It just depends on how you use it. And right now it can be potentially highly destabilizing, but it can also be something that helps bring us together. And it's just, we're still figuring it out. Even you watch the way the media handles Trump, like every president before him. If you had Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his technology, or the technology of his age, was the radio, and it enabled him to speak directly to the American people. For John F. Kennedy, it was the television, right? It allowed him to speak directly to the American people through a different medium, or a new medium, or at least I wouldn't say new medium, but he was the one who leveraged it probably better than anybody else before him. And then you look at with Trump, his medium unfortunately is Twitter, and that enables him to speak directly to the American people without the filter of his staff, the national security establishment, the media, etc. And it's just it has been a tremendous source of destabilization for the media establishment, and they're all trying to adapt to it as well. So again, it's this is the way of all new technologies. Right? It was tremendously disruptive during World War I, for instance. Right? You had the machine gun, you had the tank, you had submarines, and during that war, the reason you had mass casualties is that the generals hadn't figured out the technology yet. They were still fighting, the last war, the last big war, which was the Civil War and the Russo-Japanese War. And even in the Russo-Japanese War, they had an early preview of what those kind of mass casualties might look like with Gatling guns, and tremendously newly destructive, weapons of war. It's one of those things that society is adapts much slower to new technology, but over time it'll work its way in, and there'll be new technologies that humanity's struggling with, and it's just part and parcel of being a human.
We have just about 6 minutes here left with you tonight, and there is just so much going on that we could probably continue this discussion for another 3-4 hours. In the end, let's bring it back to the people, okay? Because no matter what the policy are, whatever the technology is, people still have the ability to think for themselves, and that thinking can change things. I mean, there is a positive to this, is there?
There is, because these tools give an individual human being, much more, much more agency than they've ever had, right? Who thought 20 years ago that you could just send something off before you got on the flight, and by the time you landed, you were famous or infamous, right? So you can speak to the world and get your message out there if the message is something that has some sort of virality for good or for ill. So there's definitely a positive message in all this, and even in what I'm doing right now, which is getting the word out for a book that I edited that I'm very proud of and that I think people would enjoy. I'm using a medley of all sorts of different technologies to do it, right? I'm using social media. I'm using the internet. I'm using, I'm talking on a radio show that's also on YouTube. That, there are ways that people like me wouldn't have had the opportunity to do, even 25 years ago. Like my father never had the same opportunities that I had. And this technology is a real multiplier in terms of being able to communicate and share things with the rest of the world. And I think that's a huge positive thing. And also it also helps share positive information, helps people learn more efficiently, helps people solve problems, helps people who are suffering from things find out that they're not the only ones who are suffering, and build communities of people who are focused on things that they may have been embarrassed to talk about 25 years ago, but now there are small communities of people who think the same and have the same interests, and it's really open things up for millions of people.
Well, the other thing too is we got 3 minutes left that I have noticed is a lot of city people now are looking to get out. They have had enough. People are getting burnt out faster. They're tired, whether it's the media, whether it's social media, everything. Like, I live in a community of 1,800, and over the last 6 months, there has been an absolute influx of housing sales around here in order for people from what we call the Lower Mainland near Vancouver, okay, moving up north because they just can't handle the city anymore. They can't handle the local politics. They can't handle the rush hour. They can't handle the traffic, the attitude of other people, so on and so forth. I mean, I see people starting to actually react adversely to the way of the fast-paced life. They want to be able to relax and enjoy life.
And that was accelerated by COVID.
Yes.
Because what happened is we've had the technology to work remotely for a very long time. It hasn't been great, but I'd say for about 10 years at least, we've had the technology to do so. And, like coders are, Silicon Valley has figured it out with coders, right? You can hire coders in Ukraine, you can hire them anywhere in the world. And that's something that's been going on quietly for quite some time. But what people are starting to find out is that even, many office jobs, you don't really need to be in person unless you're kind of more senior, right? So, in the short run, that is great for people who, want to get away from the city and want to avoid a commute. Even myself, I've saved 3 hours a day. And with those 3 hours, I was able to, instead of sitting in my car and just waiting and being grumpy, I was able to get more exercise, and I lost 30 pounds and did all sorts of great stuff. And so that's the positive of these things. And with technologies like Zoom, they make it possible. Now, there's a flip side to that too. So if you're running a company and you have all these people in an extremely expensive location who have higher salaries, they're in the next several years, they're gonna, if not already, they're gonna see the fact that there's a nearshoring or labor arbitrage opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so this will probably be a boon, at least in the U.S., for interior parts of the country in the Midwest and areas like that, and what the coastal elites would sneer and call flyover country. Mm-hmm. And in the high tax kind of coastal states in the U.S., they're going to see an exodus.
My friend,
because there's also high tax and stuff. Yeah,
I gotta end it. I gotta end it right there because we are about to say goodnight to you. Thank you, Sean, for so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. I hope you had a lot of fun with us and our audience.
Yeah, I've had a ball. I've had a blast, and I appreciate being invited here, Dave. Hopefully at some point in the future we'll talk again.
I think that's going to happen. I totally do. Sean Patrick Hazlett, everyone. You can find his book on Amazon called Weird World War III. If you like sci-fi, you like futurism, this is the book to get. So make sure you check that out. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Great job, Sean. Great job. Let's give you a few claps. There you go. A few claps for you. Honestly, great interview. You're a brilliant speaker, a brilliant guest, and I would love the opportunity to have you back on again.
Yeah, just let me know when, and I can make it happen. When can I like find a recording of this and all that good stuff so I can promote it myself?
Well, we're both on Pacific time. The podcast version, which is unedited, because I don't edit anything. We're always live to tape.
Yep.
So you'll be able to hear you and I having this conversation right now. It'll be up.
Okay, maybe.
Probably about 12:20, and then the YouTube version will be up probably around 1 o'clock.
Okay, and is that also the unedited version?
Yeah, we don't edit anything here. Everything is live to tape.
Okay, and there's no edited version whatsoever, right?
Nope. We keep it clean, unedited, so that way nobody could ever say to us that we're doctoring audio.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we said anything, or I said anything, or you said anything crazy, even off radio. So.
Yep, for sure.
That's great.
All right, my friend. You take care, okay?
All right. Yeah, it was definitely a pleasure. Thank you, Dave.
All right, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, bye.
Great guy. Sorry, John, just getting caught up here with your tweets. All right, we got the news set up. And let's see here. Oh, that clown, Marty. That clown. Ew. What's happening on TubeTube? Yeah, we don't edit anything around here. Number one, I'm too lazy to. And number two, there's just no way that anybody could ever say that I eliminate words, eliminate sentences, or anything. It's just easier. Do. We got just under 2 minutes here, everyone. 2 minutes. I really liked Sean. I really did. Honestly, this is just, we got to thank his rep, Carmen. Oh, Kristen Alberg. Why did you do that? Thank you so much for the beautiful super chat. I appreciate it. And Kristen, by the way, I read every word that you sent to me on Facebook. And I just want to say thank you for that. Much love to you and your family as well. And son of a gun, we forgot to ask. My ADD just kicked in. We forgot to ask about breakfast for dinner and Team Stump. That's all right, Gil. I love you too, man. Love you too. No, but seriously, I thought Sean was a great guest. Very knowledgeable. Corn's the booking guy coming in huge again. And the one thing I liked about him is he spoke down the middle. There was no political leaning, no governmental leaning, or anything like that. He spoke right down the middle. I thought it was fantastic. Hey, Burrito, how you doing? Kay Kaylee, thank you. Yeah, Corns, the booking guy, is just fantastic at his gig, man. Fantastic. Give him all the credit, honestly. Give Corns, the booking guy, all the credit. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, the news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes confirmation. A retired Air Force official in charge of one of its most famous UFO research efforts said before his death last year that the effort may have been scuttled not because it was fruitless, but just the opposite. In a new clip for the documentary The Phenomena, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Friend pointed to a sudden closure of Project Blue Book in 1969, which would suggest what? He asked before answering his own question. That they knew what it was. James Fox, the film's director, added, or didn't know what it was, but Friend, who led Project Blue Book from 1958 to 1963, persisted. Also the other way, Friend replied with a telling grin, that they'd know what it was. Officially, the project was shuttered despite some 700 open cases because it no longer can be justified either on the ground or of national security or in the interest of science. But Friend, who died last year at the age of 99, suggested in his last interview that the shutdown could have been for another reason. Friend, who is one of the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II and the only black leader of Project Blue Book, heading it during the civil rights movement, was originally skeptical of claims that aliens had ever made the long trip to Earth. Do I believe that we have been visited? No, I don't believe that, he told the Huffington Post in 2012. And the reason I don't believe it is because I can't conceive of any of the ways in which we could overcome some of these things. How much food would you have to take with you on a trip for 22 years through space? How much fuel would you need? How much oxygen and other things to sustain life do you have to have? However, Friend also called for more study and said he believes there could be life elsewhere. I think that at any time there's a possibility of scientific pay dirt from studying these phenomena, that yes, it would be much better if the government or some other agency was to take on these things and pursue the scientific aspects of it. More recently, revelations indicate that the U.S. government's interest in UFOs didn't end with Project Blue Book, but have continued in other forms, much of it which is detailed in the Phenomena movie. Moving on, let's do this thing. This is where we lose it with the mainstream public. All right? I'm actually surprised that a magazine like Popular Mechanics would allow this to go. So anyways, if you recall the interview last Sunday that Fox News anchor Maria Bartiromo asked Trump, can you explain why the Department of Defense has set up a UFO task force? And then Trump replied, well, I'm going to have to check on that. I mean, I've heard that. I heard that 2 days ago, so I'll check on that. I'll take a good, strong look at that, filled with information. And then when he talks about the military, he says, well, I'll tell you this. We have created a military the likes of which we've never seen before in terms of equipment. The equipment we have, the weapons we have, and hope to God we never have to use it, but have created a military the likes of which nobody has ever had. Russia, China, they're all envious of what we have. All built in the USA. We've rebuilt it all, $2.5 trillion. So Popular Mechanics is somehow tying that the technology of the U.S. military is, according to their headline, Trump acknowledges UFOs, threatens aliens with military action. Really? You know, this is where we look like we have egg on our face. The fact that Popular Mechanics has done great work, mostly in this field due to Lieutenant Tim McMillan and his outstanding reporting. To go with a headline like that, it's a cheap clickbait. It's garbage. So this is what they follow up with. They go, in August, the Pentagon established an official task force to investigate UFO sightings following confirmed UFO sightings by pilots in 2004 and 2014. The Pentagon's UAP task force will investigate sightings, also known as UFOs, in the first official U.S. government program affiliated with UFO research since a 2000s era unit that analyzed unmanned aerial vehicles and other UAPs lost its funding in 2012. We know they didn't. All right? So that's BS. Even though multiple sources confirm with Pop Mechanics that the unit remained very active in secrecy after its shutting. Well, of course it did. So what exactly was Trump getting at in this interview? One interpretation is that Trump riffed on the possibility that threats of aliens to talk about how much he had done for the U.S. military. Indeed, the president has spent approximately $2.5 trillion on defense, though there's been no real increase in America's overall military strength and number of weapons. The other possibility, oh, here we go with the woo. This was Trump directly threatening aliens, or more likely the foreign governments behind UAPs that the Pentagon is investigating with military action. In August 2017, Trump used similar wording to threaten North Korea, stating North Korea will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which the world has never seen before. If Trump did consider aliens a threat, that would likely explain the sudden rush to establish the Space Force, the newest U.S. military branch. It's not clear, though, why Trump would choose Fox News to threaten aliens with the power of the U.S. military, maybe because of reporting like this. So could the Pentagon fend off a UFO attack? It seems unlikely. You know, this is today's so-called journalism, and I will guarantee that Mr. Kyle Mizukami is not even a journalist, but probably someone who just writes a bunch of stuff. Well, looking at his other stuff, he writes a lot about the military. All right? He's written about UFOs before. That's a bad piece. Bad piece. And everybody who, you know, that's a piece where the mainstream is going to read that and they're going to be like, there they go again. There go the tinfoilers. Anyways, I could go on a rant about that, but Marty on Twitter will probably kick my butt for it. So I won't. And this isn't good for the Spaced Out Radio party in Las Vegas. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the border with the U.S. will remain closed to non-essential travel until the U.S. gets coronavirus under control. We have committed to keeping Canadians safe, and we keep extending the border closures because the United States is not in a place where we should feel comfortable reopening the borders. Yeah. We see the increases in cases in the U.S. and elsewhere around the world, and we need to continue to keep these border controls in place. The current border closure agreement between the U.S. and Canada is set to expire October 21st, but it will likely be extended for a seventh time since the first went into effect back in March. Coronavirus cases are climbing in the U.S. as winter approaches. There's been an average of 53,124 new cases a day over the last 2 weeks, a 23% increase from the average 2 weeks earlier, according to New York Times analysis. Well, that's not good. In the meantime, dealing with a second wave that Trudeau called really exhausting. Oh, that's a nice pun. He's a shaking. Anyways, the country reported 30,925 cases in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, We got it up here, too. Trudeau also warned Canadian snowbirds against flying south to places like Florida, Arizona, and California for warmer weather, but where the virus is not under control or controlled less than places in Canada. Ultimately, if someone chooses to travel, we're not going to keep them in prison in Canada. There's freedom of movement in this country. Still, people have to recognize they're putting themselves at risk, putting their loved ones at risk. Yeah. Well, I wonder if we could get the Spaced Out Radio Party in Vegas as an essential party. We should apply for that. See if we could get an essential Spaced Out Radio Party in Vegas. Who doesn't need a Vegas trip right now? Who doesn't need that? Little Kurt looks like any other baby horse as he frolics playfully in his pen. He isn't afraid to kick or headbutt an intruder who gets in his way. And when he's hungry, little Kurt dashes over to Mom for milk. But this is where 2-month-old Kurt differs from every other baby horse. He's a clone. The rare endangered Przewalski's horse was created from cells taken from a stallion that had sat frozen at the San Diego Zoo for 40 years before they were fused with an egg with a domestic horse. With the egg's nucleus removed, ensuring Kurt would be basically all Przewalski's horse, they were implanted into the mare who would become his mom on August 6th. The results, officials say, was the world's first cloned Przewalski's horse. Scientists have cloned nearly 24 kinds of animals, including dogs, cats, pigs, cows, and polo ponies. In 2018, researchers in China created monkeys for the first time using the cloning techniques that produced Dolly the sheep. The zoo sees Kurt's birth as a milestone in effort to restore the population of the horse, also known as the Asiatic wild horse or the Mongolian wild horse. The small, stocky animals, they stand only about 4 to 5 feet tall at the withers, are believed extinct in the wild and number only about 2,000 in zoos and wildlife habitats. Their limited gene pool puts them at reproductive disadvantage. This colt is expected to be one of the most genetically important individuals of his species. Bob Weiss, Chief Life Sciences Officer at San Diego Zoo, which operates the zoo, he says, "We are hopeful that we will be able to bring back genetic variation important for the future of the horse population." Although only 2 months old, Kurt's birth was made possible in 1980 when cells were taken from a 5-year-old stallion and put in a deep freeze at San Diego's Frozen Zoo facility. His father died in 1998. Kurt was named Kurt Benarishki, who played a key role in founding the Frozen Zoo with his extensive research program and cell cultures. A central tenet of the Frozen Zoo, which is established by Dr. Benarishki, was that it would be used for purposes not possible at the time. And now we have Kurt. Isn't that nice? Cute little guy, too. Twitter experienced a major outage with users across the world affected. The social media giant said the issue was caused by an inadvertent change it made to its internal systems. People in countries including Canada, the United States, and the UK were unable to use the platform for more than an hour without receiving message or getting message errors. The service was later largely restored, and the California-based company said the site should be working for all of its users, which it seems to be working now. According to downdetector.com, reports of the problem with Twitter began to spike at about 21:30 General Mountain Time. It said users from around the world had reported being unable to use the platform. Well, good journalism there in repeating the wording. Anyways, in the U.S., there were tens of thousands of reports. I couldn't get a tweet out. No, it was blocking. I still think, you know what, with this, I still think it has something to do with YouTube and them purging a bunch of channels again. I really do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. So I just think that it has something to do with YouTube's purge, because this always seems to happen. When one goes down, all the others go down as well. Let's continue on. Last week, Craving Sweets, Colin Purrington remembered the Twinkies. He purchased them back in 2012 for sentimental reasons when he heard that Hostess Brands was going bankrupt and Twinkies might disappear forever. When there's no desserts in your house, you get desperate, says Purrington, who went down to the basement and retrieved the old box of snack cakes, fully intending to eat them. He busted out the Twinkies now instead of waiting a couple more years, in part because he was just so bored with the pandemic. It's terrible, but it's just mind-numbing after a while. Like many people, Purrington believed Twinkies are basically immortal, although the official shelf life is 45 days. He removed a Twinkie from the box, unwrapped it. It looked fine, took a bite, then retched. Tasted like an old sock, he says. Not that I've ever eaten an old sock. That's when he examined the other Twinkies. Two looked weird. One had a dark-colored blemish on the side of it, the size of a quarter. The other Twinkie was completely transformed. It was gray, shrunken, and wrinkly, much like my ex-wife. Like a dried morel mushroom. He posted photos on Twitter, and they caught the attention of two scientists, Brian Lovett and Matt Kaysen, who study fungi at Western Virginia University in Morgantown. Matt is going to want that Twinkie, though, Lovett, in the instant he saw the mummified one. That's because in the past their lab has tested how well molds grow in Peeps, the classic Easter treat. Fungi actually found it difficult to survive in Peeps because of the food's low water content. Who eats Peeps anyways? Those things are disgusting. You know, you grab a bunch of them, you roll them up, and you pretty much have a golf ball there. Anyways, Casson notes the food industry has crafted the ability to make foods that have a longer shelf life. Still, Casson says fungi are everywhere and have an amazing set of chemical tools that lets them break down all kinds of substances. You find fungi growing on jet fuel, he said. The researchers immediately thought some kind of fungus was involved in attacking the 8-year-old Twinkies because they've studied fungi that kill insects and dry them out in a similar way. Plus, the reddish blotch on one of the Twinkies seemed to have a growth pattern that's typical of fungi. Basically, it looks like a giant mole. Anyways, they reached out to Purrington, who was only too happy to mail them the Twinkies immediately. Science is a collaborative sport, he says. If someone could take this and figure out what is actually growing, I'm all in. I really want to know what species exactly was eating my Twinkies. Moving on, firefighters and paramedics in Florida finished mowing a man's lawn after treating him for heat exhaustion he suffered while mowing it. The Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue said they immediately treated the Army veteran and cooled him off. Prince Pinkney, an Army veteran in his 80s, God bless him, was working on his yard Monday when he started feeling ill, and his leg, which has never fully recovered from a stroke years ago, gave out on him. The rescued crew arrived within minutes after a passerby who saw Pinkney on the ground and his wife struggling to hold him up called for help. After they were treated, one of the paramedics began finishing cutting the lawn as cell phone video captured the awesome moment. Pinkney and his wife thanked the firefighters and paramedics who took the photo with them afterwards. The veteran served as a missile tech in Vietnam, and the first responders said they appreciated Pinkney's service to the country. Their story is amazing in itself, Fire Rescue Captain Terry Mailer said. Their age, what they've gone through, his history as a veteran serving this country. If that doesn't move you to go ahead and do what you're capable of, then nothing will. And finally, I don't know if you saw this video, but a Zamboni in New York was caught on camera bursting into flames, and the badass driver literally got it off the ice while it's burning. This guy had pucks of steel, if you know what I'm saying. The incident occurred this past Wednesday during a youth hockey practice while the driver was on the Zamboni trying to clean the ice at Bill Gray's Regional Iceplex in New York. Rochester Fire Department Lieutenant Ryan Fleming said no one was hurt, including the driver who continued driving the machine off the rink to the maintenance area where it was on fire, and a couple of youth hockey players who were at the rink at the time. The incident, which has over 500,000 views on social media, was sparked by leaking hydraulic fluid. Oh, that's terrible. Terrible. Yeah. Anyways, Fleming said the Zamboni driver was able to put the fire out himself after he got to the maintenance area. He just threw a bunch of ice on it, because that's the way it happens. This guy must be Canadian. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. If you could change one past world event to change the future, tell me what it would be. Cheryl, I would sink Columbus's fleet. Sylvia, the gas chambers and all of those World War II horrors. Chris, 9/11. Too many died because of that. John, erase the assassination of JFK. Jerry, to have Hitler die in battle during World War I. Yeah, that would have been a good one. James, thought of the Dave Scott. Why is Twitter down? Oh, I know, James, I know. Farmer Robert, splitting the atom. It will come back to haunt us. It's a lot to think about, Dave, says Kimberly. Choices are limited. Joe, I'm torn between two choices. If Atlantis had not been destroyed, we'd probably have flying cars right now, and I'm not going to say the second part to that one. Nick, the beer hunter by my house never closed down, and I could go for my ghost pepper wings and electric unicorn. Lisa, if the discovery of the New World had went more to embrace the First Nation people and their ideas, I think we'd be in a far different world today. Nikki wants JFK's death reversed. Nicole, I'd stop at the Great Library of Alexandria from burning and save all that lost ancient knowledge. Mandy, no money. Edie, yeah, well, that I'm not saying that. And Tom, Marx wouldn't have written Das Kapital or the Communist Manifesto. Steven, time travel paradox. Gabe, whatever it takes to stop COVID-19. Kevin gets the final word. I would have had Steven Spielberg make Close Encounters of the Third Kind into a musical. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Day. We will do it all again tomorrow on Twitter and Facebook. And thank you to Captain Shirk for wonderful news. Once again, you can find it all at spacedoutradio.com. And the pleasure of interviewing tonight, Sean Patrick Hazlett. Check him out on Amazon. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you so much if you're in our chat rooms on YouTube, Spreaker, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club on our website, and of course, all the snarkers and snarkettes playing along on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Great job, people. Great job by all of you tonight. Good job. You guys were massive. You guys were awesome. Seriously. Hey, thank you to Zoe Buttercup, who has the cutest smile. Cute little Zoe Buttercup. Have you stayed a while? Anybody know what movie that's from? One of the greatest movies ever. The Three Amigos, where I found my love for the word plethora. Thanks to El Guapo. Kristen Alberg, thank you so much for the lovely super chat tonight. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, thank you as well. Kyle Evans, Northern UFOs, Manitoba Becky, and Cat Chaser, you guys are all amazing. Thank you so much for supporting what we do here. I love you all. Thank you. And to those out there who've given us a thumbs up and everybody tuning in tonight, God damn, you guys are awesome. Honestly, big fans of yours. Big, big fans. Even though my little buttercup has the cutest smile. Come on. Cute little buttercup, can you stay a while? No, apparently you can't. Because eventually the show will shut down. Oh, yes. Well, let's see here. What is this one? John Patrick Hazlett. I was a fan of his, man. Really. It's a good get, Corrence, the booking guy. Honestly. I gotta reverse these. Where the hell did my mouse go? There it is. Why am I still wearing headphones? It's the other thing I want to know right now. Do 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 do. Thanks, Zoe Buttercup, for putting that song in my head now. Appreciate that. Let me see here. Hey, Quest, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Saying the word amigos might be a hate crime? Really? That true? I don't get that. All right. I'll be right back, guys. You don't go anywhere. Oh, sorry. I pointed to the wrong camera. I was like over this camera. It's over that camera. I have two cameras in here. All right. Be right back. All right. Let's get to this, shall we? That's a good show. Good show. Where's Dave? Dave is right here. Hi, redheaded Lisa. You can swear in here, Zoe, if you want. Instead of saying B, we all know what you meant by that. Just so you know, we're all adults in here. God, I hope this COVID shit cleans up soon. Getting tired of it. Oh, I like curse words. I'm a curse word kind of guy. All right. Let's do this. Get rid of that. Let's start here, shall we? Let's do the old editing thing. So where did we start this show? Let's turn this up a little bit. Here. And here. Right about there. Yeah. Who else? Bee's Nest. Good day. Here. There we go. You had your last chemo today. Everybody for Lisa. Good girl. Good girl, Lisa. We're proud of you. Way to battle, honey. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. 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 Do do do. I can't sing. I'll tell you why, Raul. I'll tell you why, man. Is because I actually got flagged on YouTube for copyright infringement, and they had to review one of my videos because I was singing along to a song. Yes, it's true. And I didn't have any background music. They just tried to nail me for copyright infringement because I was singing a song while I was doing my editing. How awesome is that? But wait, there's more. What are we talking about tomorrow night? Oh, we're getting into UFOs. Patrick Sinclair, or Paul Sinclair, pardon me. Paul Sinclair tomorrow night. Round off another solid week of Corns the Booking Guy shows. Corns, do we have anybody for the 23rd yet? Send it my way, freaky princess. Freaky, freaky. So I'm sending my little guy back to school tomorrow. Kept him home today. Just didn't feel comfortable. I haven't heard from the teacher yet. But old dad will prepare the little guy for tomorrow. I kind of like the kid. All right, let's close this off. And give me 2 seconds for everyone. Do 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 do. All right. We'll figure it out by Saturday. If not, I'll go into the plans. Hey, John. How's your Stetson? Night, Kev. You know, I actually inquired about putting my son in judo today. I left a message with them yesterday, but they didn't get back to me because we have a beautiful judo studio here. But the lady who she had this beautiful Asian accent, and you could tell she was a little bit older. And she was like, I am so sorry. You know, COVID has really ruined everything, and we can't open up. And you're not the first person. I'm like, oh, just please, you know, keep my name and phone number. And I said, we're interested in putting my son in and having him learn and everything. And so, unfortunately, can't even get him into martial arts right now. So, we're working on it. Where the hell did that go? Where the hell did that go? Hold on. All right, so let's go. This. No, let's not do that. Oh, son of a gun. Now I'm hitting buttons that don't need to be. All right. Let's clear this. All right. And let's get started here. All right, get ready for your verification codes, everyone. It's that time of the night again. 6-digit verification code time. Your verification code for tonight is 292424. 292424 is your password. 292424. Don't forget to verify wisely, people. We don't want you getting in trouble for bad verification. Jenny, it's kind of tough because of the pandemic, right? So, bad, Teresa. I know where you went with that. Bad. Bad. I know you're laughing right now. Good try, Gil. Gil, by your photo there on your profile pic, looks like you're hammering home a good mustache or goatee there. Making good mention of that right there. What's this? Had to take 5 years in speech just to speak English? Where are you from, Zoe? Zoe, we won't make fun of you. We'll just snark a little bit. Oh, that's where the photo went. Okay. Look at that. Huh, found you, you dirty bastard, trying to get away. All right. Oh, where did the rest go? There. Doo-doo. But I am going to start my son in guitar lessons here soon. That I am going to do. Get him going on that. So that way he is rocking and rolling. Because he does love his music. My parents are from Europe. My mom... Oh, beautiful. That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't do any sort of music. I just love rock and roll, though. I grew up in a household where my parents hated rock and roll. Hated it. And both of my parents not very musically inclined. But growing up, my dad kind of ruled me with a little bit of an iron fist. And he wouldn't let me learn how to play guitar. He wanted me to play saxophone. So I played saxophone for like 2 years. First year, I really enjoyed it. Second year, I could not stand it. Did not want to play it. I wanted to play guitar. So I gave up music, and then from the time I was 9 years old, I had asked for a guitar every year for Christmas. Never got one. And it wasn't until my 39th birthday or 40th birthday that I actually got a guitar, but I just haven't had time to learn how to play. And, you know, with the show going on nightly and everything, you know, I wish I was secretly a hair metal band frontman. That would be awesome. Be just stellar. Yeah, so I just introduce my son to all sorts of music. Except country. You know, I don't wish that upon any child. That one's done. Downloads are done. Thurston Howell the Third. Oh, Sandra, I know the feeling. Try being a Ukrainian, or maybe you are Ukrainian, I don't know. Being in a Ukrainian family, holy shit. In the 70s, early 80s, having to listen to the 8 tracks of Bobby Vinton. Oh my God. Terrible. Oh, that was cool, Teresa. I've got the hair tucked back tonight, Bapster. I've got the hair tucked back. All right. Do 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 do. I don't even know what Bobby Vinton's saying. All I know it was painful. Do I enjoy rap music? Some. I like EDM. I like techno. I like house music. Love classical. Jazz is really good. Blues. My favorite blues artist is Joanna Connor. She is just absolutely amazing. Joe Bonamassa. Rock. I like some southern rock. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to shut things down here because it is that time of the night where I got to get to bed and I got to get my little guy ready for school. So, much love to all of you. Thank you so much for being patient with me tonight and having a great show that we did. Thank you to Corns the booking guy and Spookles the cat for being amazing parts to my team and making sure that all the social media and guests are done correctly. Without them, I'm nothing. Thank you to all of you who participated in the super chat tonight, our brand new listeners who've signed up on YouTube and elsewhere on our social media platforms. I love you all. Thank you. We're going to do it all again tomorrow. We have Paul Sinclair, UFOs, and all that kind of goodies tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Good night.